Hey, everybody. It's the crew from Not a Drop to Drink. All the vampires.
Hi. Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, you're allowed to talk.
Nobody,
Go ahead.
am I the first one? Somebody say something. It's getting weird.
Somebody do something.
Yeah, please. I'm begging you.
Let's just see how long I can stretch out this awkward silence for.
Oh no.
Oh, man, the camera's had cactus.
Yeah.
Just gonna sit in it. Yeah. Oh.
See, I was honestly expecting us to play the other intro as well.
Oh.
I mean, we could do that
Yeah,
if you want. Should we do that?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it feels weird not having it.
Yeah.
Hanger alert.
Time for Not a Drop to Drink.
Thank you for running that, Paul.
Now we
Thank
can
you,
start.
Paul.
Now we can start. Yeah.
However everything feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna
Just
revel in the
fingers
satisfaction. Just like,
Ryan Ike did a damn good job with that.
Shout outs to Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Huge shout outs to Ryan.
Yeah, he's
It makes
definitely.
Victoria.
Okay, Ryan's the one that told me that you ruined his life for making him play vampire and having fun.
Yeah, that sounds like
That doesn't sound like me at all.
Yeah.
Thanks Ryan for throwing me under the bus like that.
Yep.
It makes you feel any better, Jacob. You haven't ruined my life yet.
Yeah. It doesn't. That's not
Is
that's
that,
not
Well,
what
I
feels to
tried.
Jacob.
That's the best I got.
No,
is that,
but I
is that a
appreciate it.
goal? Is that a goal Jacob has in mind, is ruining people's lives with fun?
Adam,
Because I-
before you say that, I've got to ask you a question. Would you like to play more vampire?
That's a good question.
A fine question, and that's in fact what we're here for, Q&A. So, why don't you A that Q there, you lovely
know.
man.
I think I liked it. I think I liked more just I got to play with everybody here than I liked the actual vampire. I just think I don't think vampires are ever gonna do it for me. I'm never gonna be like, fuck yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait to hear about Tremere and what else? Tremere and Tremere, because that's the only one I remember. Yeah, I love all. The setting was cool. I had a lot of fun. I got to play a game with my friends, but it's just
100%.
vampires are just not the thing that get my creative juices really get me going.
I totally get that.
But
And
I enjoyed the fuck out of
challenge-
Oliver. I liked my character, right?
Good.
But I just my strengths are playing that person that kind of is in over their head and is willing to question everything that's going on around them as the insanity unfolds, and everyone else is like, yeah, that's a normal thing that happened. I'm like, wait a second, what the fuck was that? It's that's part
Adam,
of what I
I
enjoy.
I have one response to that.
Yes.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
You already agreed to play more. And
I did.
And we are going to do more, just to be very clear off the top, because it seems like there are a few people that haven't heard. More of Not a Drop to Drink is coming in 2021 right here on Loading Ready Run. So, yay.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I mean, it turned out a lot better than all of us could have possibly hoped, right? I felt good coming out of the recording, and I was like, oh, that was pretty good. That turned out okay. Right, and then everybody all the response to it has been overwhelmingly positive, so that's always nice, right? It's not like everyone hated it.
Yeah.
It's just it's oh, it was great. Everyone had nice things to say to all of us, and we're just like, all right, cool.
Can we call the next installment Not a Drop 2? TWO
please.
drink?
Like Ratatouille.
Yeah, with or
with
just
the
a
two.
numeral 2, Not a Drop 2 drink.
Is there a
Two?
sequel to Ratatouille that I don't know about?
No, but there could be. If there was a sequel to Ratatouille, it'd be Ratatouille. Yeah. Just works out, right?
Yeah, it's
Two
like how I'm
drops,
going to
two
call the
drink,
sequel to Heat Death, Die Hotter.
Tooth? Heat Tooth.
See, I think
Like
people
Heat
are
Death 2,
underplaying
Die
how Ratatouille is clearly related to The Secret of Nim. Like,
Yep.
Yeah, all the mice and rats that got blown away down the vent.
yeah.
They had to go somewhere. Turns out they went to Paris.
I guess a good place to start too is like, let's start with the leader, Jacob.
Hey,
How did you feel going into the session, and how did you feel coming out?
my God.
Going
into the session, the way that I set up games is I build a living city. I do all of the work ahead of time, and a lot of people have said like, oh, they're gonna like mess with the plot and things like that. There was no plot. There is a city that I make, and everything churns from point A to point B. I have a timeline. This person's doing this thing, this person's doing this thing, this person's doing this thing. That's how it's working. I've already got it set up. I've written the whole thing. Here it is. Now let's make player characters that fit into that, and we have ties, and I'll adjust the city and adjust everything based on the people that you make, which is why Session 0 was banger, because then I could fold everything in and kind of like rework aspects to it. I was incredibly excited because I love the challenge of getting, especially when somebody says, Adam, like, this isn't my thing. I think it is. I truly think it is, because I know how much you like Dark Souls. I know how much you like Demon Souls. I know how much you like Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And that's what this is there's hidden clues everywhere that you have to go and find. And this, does it have meaning, or is it just this red hair? Like, I do think it's your thing because of how everything ties together and how everything goes. Or at least I think there's going to be something that you're going to be able to attach to. Being able to run for 3 new people and somebody who hasn't touched Vampire in a very long time, I got to go in just going like, here is a thing that I enjoy very much. I think you will like it too. I'm going to put the best foot forward that I possibly can. And then coming out of it, you all had a good time. Like, you had fun. And that just kind of existing in the world and being the people that you wanted to be, and we all told an amazing story together. So I went in very excited, a little bit trepidatious, because this is my first time running a game on stream. And then after was just, I desperately wanting to do more and not knowing if we were going to get to. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. How about everybody else?
Heather?
Okay, so going into it, I was told I didn't need to do any homework, so of course I tried to do all of the possible work and reading I could possibly do in a very restricted schedule, because I was like, no, they said I don't need to know anything, which means I must know everything, which didn't work in my favor at all, because I didn't have time to do that. So I showed up tired and overwhelmed already. And then I tried to do more of that between session 0 and our next sessions, because we had that time space, which was a lot. It was also like my first time on camera for Dice Friends, because I'm generally behind the camera, so that was a lot of worry, a lot of I'm going to do the wrong thing, I'm going to mess up somehow and say the wrong thing. I'm going to turn out to be the worst kind of player, because you always hear the horror stories, and I haven't played a lot of tabletop RPGs in person with people. Most of my stuff's been online in forums, so you have a lot of delayed time in order to respond and think about things. But by the end of it, I think it kind of shows on camera too, that I was definitely more comfortable by the end, and I was having a lot of fun, and I want to play more. So That's probably the first time I've said
Yeah.
that after a tabletop RPG that I've played. I mean, I've only played a couple, so. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was a big step for you to go into this. Like, it was new for you, right? Like, in the same way that it was new for me, it was new for you, too, right? Because you were stepping from behind, like, a usual production role. You're like, fuck, I gotta be on talent, or on camera.
New system. Being on a stage, which changes my environment, so my environment is very different than... and it's not like I haven't been on a production stage before, but it's been like I was 12 the last time that happened. So getting used to that again. Yeah.
I
liked it.
loved being on that stage.
It's different, right? Like, it definitely makes you... When you're playing on a stage like that, and like when you're getting being recorded in that way, it changes the way that you approach the game.
Yeah,
makes you feel like, oh, well, I have to act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, I've never classically trained as an actor, but it makes you feel like you can, like, it's like, oh.
I mean, Jacob did these stretches and stuff and had us move around and whatnot beforehand, and I found that very helpful because it was like, now at least we're warming up and we're not trying to do something cold.
Yeah, and don't I wouldn't trust any classically trained actors. They're pretty much assholes. Like,
Oh, okay.
God.
What about you, Corey?
Oh, God. Okay. So, much like Heather said, we were told we didn't need to prepare. So I got the rule book, which is like 400 pages. And I didn't realize it was that long. So I spent more of the week leading up to that prepping for Heat Death, which we recorded the same day as session 0 of this. And so after day 1, I definitely was hitting the books and like, what is going on? Like, I like to know what my options are.
Yeah. Yeah, like when we recorded session 0 day 1, or like the day before, and then we did sessions 1, 2, and 3 like all back to back, basically. Just do it in one day, because I mean, like, we don't want to record like a 2-hour session once a week in the Belfry, because it's expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that wouldn't make any sense money wise.
Yeah.
That was actually a specific request that I had, is could we do all of the sessions in one day? Because normally when I run at home, my sessions are minimum 8 hours. Like, I play in my home games, we play usually about once a month, and it is a minimum of 8 hours, sometimes 12. So I was like, I want to get this to feel as much like a home game that we're just happen to be filming as possible. So that I'm glad we can make that work.
Yeah, I think the max I did in college was like 6 hours, and that sounds like so much fun. But for this, like, I was massively excited to play with Heather, who I've never really played with, even though we've known each other for a long time. And as far as Jacob goes, I did actually play Cavaliers of Mars at a convention that you DM'd.
That was great.
I did like one little mini session of a different game with Jacob, and I was like, I know what to expect. Pretty confident here. This is going to go great. So yeah, I was like really super excited and trying to absorb a lot of nouns. Yeah, and like, even though you told us during the filming not to read past page 5 of the booklet, like the moment you handed me the booklet, I went through every page.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was my mistake. I should not have handed you all of the packets. I shouldn't have trusted all of you. That was on me. Next time we do it, I will hand you things as I wish you to look at them.
Yeah. What about you, Cam?
Well, I mean, like, I came to it from a place of having last played Vampire when it had the green marble book with the rose.
Revised.
Revised. And I thought I played a
British.
Malkavian for a while with friends, and I had played a Caitiff who I really liked. And I think I lied when I said I had never played a Tremere. I made a Tremere once and got to play it for like one session, and then that campaign stopped because of exams, and we never got back to it. But like, I remember flipping through the book and being like, "Hey, where's thaumaturgy?" Right? And just kind of like
thaumaturgy being the old term is essentially the Tremere term for what blood sorcery is. Yeah.
Now it's been combined with a few other disciplines from other clans into blood sorcery, because it was kind of all the same thing. Well, not all the same thing, but like they were compatible ideas, right?
Yes.
In a lore sense. And so I came to it with a lot of that familiarity with the capitalized like nouns and the vocabulary, but a bit out of date. And so I thought playing somebody who was a bit more experienced, but also clearly still a newcomer, was probably appropriate. And I really enjoyed you saying that, like, sure, whatever knowledge you have of the setting is something that your character can have, and that can either be right or wrong. Right? Yeah. Like the I enjoy the idea that maybe what's contained in the flip through I had of the werewolf book in a game store while the owner stared daggers at me is probably, about what a vampire might have. Right? Like,
werewolf bad.
Yeah, these guys seem real big. Right, because you flipped the stats, obviously.
I'm assuming there's like there's a game called Werewolf, right?
Werewolf the Apocalypse, yes.
So you can play the opposite side. You can play like you don't have to play the vampires.
Are they really sides, or are they just different groups? Really,
they're just different groups.
Yeah.
They do, but it's not technically. It's not sides. Okay, I said I'd be brief. Okay, so werewolves don't like vampires because essentially they believe that they are a symptom of a greater disease. Yes. I swear to God, anything anybody asks me, I'm trying to keep to like 20-25 words or less.
What about the werewolves we fought?
Did they seem like they liked us? I'm pretty sure they hated us.
Well, they were pretty cool with us.
They were pretty chill.
They laughed at my
jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene definitely. We're just gonna go right into the game, I guess, because like that we've gotten a lot of questions about that scene specifically.
Yeah.
Because especially questions about like what Jacob had originally planned, and usually what happens with games is like I find that people like watching like D&D and stuff when stuff goes wrong, right? We want stuff to like the dice to fundamentally change the way the DM alter the DM's plans, because the DM has a vision, right? Whenever the storyteller, I should say, when the storyteller has a vision of the story that needs to go on, right? Everything that needs to happen. And then all of a sudden one dice roll changes everything, which was Corey's messy crit, right?
Yeah. That went the opposite direction of what I intended. And that's not even like the opposite of what the storyteller intended. That's just I didn't mean for that to happen.
Yeah, I think it's in a lot of TV shows and popular culture, and even amongst tabletop groups, there's always the joke of you went the other direction than the way that your storyteller has told you to go, and now they have to throw out this giant binder of stuff and now they have to figure out what they're going to do. And I don't think that's quite. I think it's a joke, and because it's been perpetuated, people just think that's the thing that happens all the time, and it's funny when it happens to see the person who's like, oh, I spent all this time crafting this struggle to be like, oh shoot, now I have to push this other direction, and I didn't think about that yet, and my players are all maniacs, and how dare they.
And like I feel that is kind of like a certain style of GMing where you have written out the novel of what you want your players to do, and then your players very disobediently do something that they wanted to do instead. right? Which is a way of doing things, but I appreciate that. My comment on it is, if you don't want elements of chaos in your game, don't include a mechanism like messy crits. And I feel that vampires are these characters who are very, like, working very, very hard on containing the beast. It always wants something, and sometimes it's slippery and it gets away from you. And that's just the nature of the game. That sometimes chaos will erupt around you. And that's why the Masquerade is so important. But also why it's volatile.
Yep, absolutely. The beast is the best way that I can describe it, and I think I may have done this during the game, is that it's the fight or flight response ratcheted up to 11. Like, it isn't necessarily a separate entity, it is just a stronger impulse that you now have because you're a vampire that hungers or wants to flee or hates. Like, it's those impulses that do their best to fulfill the needs that you have, and they're constantly at war with your own humanity and connecting you to what it means to be human. Beast I am, lest beast I become. That's kind of the thing. That's the whole philosophical caveat behind vampire. And all of the World of Darkness lines typically have a philosophical caveat behind them.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
fucking love this setting.
Yeah, it's really great. Like, you are constantly being forced into these, like, not quite no-win, but definitely compromising ethical dilemmas, right? The first of which is, well, you have to feed on humans. Otherwise, you are going to feed on humans. Right? Like, this is...
Yes.
And if you didn't want to do that, sure, stand outside and enjoy the sunrise.
Yep.
But
Yes.
it's implicit that we have all faced that decision and decided, no, I'm comfortable with this.
Yep. Yeah.
And...
Human... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that I think people might misread is that being human doesn't mean being good. That's where the convictions and touchstones come in, is you have a person in your life that kind of typifies this one thing that you connect to, that it's called your touchstone, that has this thing that you connect to that helps you to be human. You might actually be morally okay with killing people, like, as a vampire, and still keep your humanity fairly high. Like, death is just part of life, and you as a person have accepted that. However, it is untenable to you to not challenge authority at every turn. You always need to find the why of it. So that's what makes you feel like less of almost yourself, is when you don't do that, when you turn away from that, that's when you get stains. That's when your own defenses against the beast tend to kind of start to erode a little bit.
Part of what I found so interesting about the setting was, like, and just the way I generally make characters is, like, what if you took somebody from 2020 and just turned them into a vampire today? Right? Like, what would happen? You know? And I guess that's kind of the inspiration that was for Oliver. It was just like, what if you took, like, someone who's kind of out of touch with today's society at best, and then gave them also immortality, extreme power, and then but a lot of responsibility as well, with, like, the masquerade and stuff like that. Stuff like they just, like, feel like extremely overwhelming. Like, all of a sudden, I love that part of the world. It's just like when you take somebody and you change them fundamentally, like you have put a beast inside them, right, that needs to be fed and taken care of and catered to, and then you still leave them in the world. Like, they can still just do whatever they want. Right? It's like, what happens when you give people this kind of power and responsibility? It generally doesn't end up too well.
No. And what happens to their motivations? Do they change as a person? Like, what do their desires change? Like, will Oliver turn more into a political monster, or will he just be like, oh, all vampires are bad, they all got to go. You know, I'm so excited to see how these characters change. And that's a question that I have. And we heard a little bit about from Adam, but like, where was everybody's, we all made the characters together. We all had a little bit of input and a little like dusting of story juice in everybody's kind of character. But where did you as players, you as people, where did you kind of get, like, where'd you get the inspiration for your characters?
I don't know. Who wants to start?
I can go.
Okay.
I wanted to play somebody who looked to the future, like as a broad concept. Somebody who was like, okay, cool, I'm a vampire. That means I live forever? Question mark. And looked around the room and people are like, yeah, you'll live forever. And he's like, cool. The sun's going to go nova in a few billion years. We have to get out of here now. Like, we have, like, their TikTok, right? We have problems that are not being addressed, and all of the vampire leadership is not dealing with them either, right? We are dependent on humans. Mm-hmm. Some of us can feed on other things, but if you look in the rule book, I don't know where the blood potency says that feeding on animals no longer works, but it's not too deep into age, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying you're going to take the vampires to Mars, Cameron?
You can't stay around here. The sun's going to blow up, dude.
You might need to go further than Mars.
Yeah, it's not even Mars. It's out of the solar system.
Yeah, we're going to...
Like, not only do we need to get off Mars, we need to make sure we take humans with us, and lots of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Somebody very clearly said, no space, no ocean.
Yeah.
And I promised that you will not go to space.
Yeah, sorry, Cameron. I vetoed your... I don't
mean,
like the infinite blackness of space. It freaks me out.
That's fair, right? But I wanted a character who, when I went back to university, I had read this book called Cradle to Cradle. And I have no idea how valid this idea actually is. But, you know, there was a TED Talk, so I assume. But the idea was that you design all your things with their end in mind, right? When you design, like, a pair of shoes with a nylon upper, right? Maybe you design it out of a material that can be recycled, right? Because eventually we have to deal with the consequences of everything that we make, right?
Yeah,
Planned
that's totally
obsolescence isn't bad, right? In fact, it's necessary because everything will become obsolete, right? This is, you know, this Maytag washer and dryer was made to last forever. Well, no, it might last a while, but eventually it's going to be here. And vampires are absolutely people who will have to deal with the consequences of everything. And that's
true,
not
right?
something.
Yeah, like
it's not in any of the
humans are
books.
just like,
I looked it up in the index, and it doesn't have an entry for eternity.
Yeah, like
Right.
humans are just dying, right? They're not here forever. And vampires, like, you're leaving us this planet, and you're pissing it away, like, you know what I mean? Like, I like that idea. Like, the idea of the vampires, like, hey, motherfucker, like, we have to stay here. Like, can you wipe your shoes off? Like, goddamn, dude.
Like, I imagine that Silas, upon first time, you know, being introduced to, like, the elders of a city, or his first, like, very, very powerful vampire, was probably actually quite shaken by the experience of meeting somebody who, as it turns out, is just like a several-century-old mean girl.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's most vampires, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, and whose lives are concerned with this incredibly petty scope of court politics, instead of, like, you know, is anyone looking? The 22nd century isn't that far off right now.
Yeah.
Right? And all the elders are like, it'll probably be fine.
And how interesting is it when Silas runs into something that doesn't care about the long game and starts to realize that every vampire has one of these things?
Mm-hmm. Right? And, like, I assumed that, like, the character I had in mind was a very, like, good boy. My character concept is a very good boy, because that's what he was raised to be.
He was.
And, like, you know, he made tea for his grandmother and did all of his chores and basically, like, never stepped out of line and made sure that all of his familial responsibilities were seen to, you know, and took care of his brothers and sisters. And then suddenly he's shocked out of that life, and now he's a very good boy for somebody else because he still has all of those same tendencies. Only now it's this scene pyramid of the Tremere, right?
Yes.
And his backgrounds that I took for him were Bond Junkie and Long Bond, because, you know, Cameron remembers way back in the day the Tremere had very strong blood bonds.
Yes.
Right, that was how they enforced the hierarchy, because otherwise, vampire wizards, that seems dangerous, right?
I know.
So you need to keep
they
them in
don't
line.
have that anymore.
Yeah, they don't have that anymore, which is way dangerous. But he still feels that absence, right? Like, I imagine for the Tremere, like, that was removed, but maybe there's still, like, the feeling that remains behind, the echo of that necessity and that obligation and that need to be bound and needed and directed in some way.
I know. How interesting is it that Silas is largely on his own now?
Exactly. And my first thought was like, oh, how long until he starts being not a good boy? It turns out the opportunity presented itself basically instantly, right?
Yes.
To start getting really reckless.
Yeah. I think I read a comment somewhere that somebody said, I love how Cameron's playing Silas like he's stolen a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like there's, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. but what do you mean I'm on my own? What do you mean that suddenly this weight comes off of him?
Yeah.
So
That's
that, and I
good shit.
desperately want to know why vampires were disappearing until 2 years ago.
Okay.
Like,
noted.
Desperately wants to know, like, that. Not out of a sense of any of his other, like, major character traits, but he's also just a very curious person, and that seems like an interesting question.
It is a very interesting question. There's before we move on to the to somebody else and their character creation concept, I want to introduce a concept to all of you and all of my players called the cube. Occasionally, you will say something offhanded. I hear everything and I will take a note of everything. If you say something like, you are familiar with this concept, you know our friend and mine, Dale. It is a similar style that I have, except I have the cube. So if you ever say anything in front of me and you see my eyes light up, or you see Jacob scream behind these orbs that are the windows to the soul, you can say cube, and then that won't become a part of your game. Everything else at some point will.
Just make a sign.
Yeah, just
Cube.
so you can put it in the cube and I'll never touch it again.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Who would like to go next?
We just go around the horn, Corey?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
This is what I'm interested to hear about this.
Jordan Hinkleman.
Yeah.
Hinkleman's a funny name. That's entirely no. So, with the setting being very grounded in like the place that we live, and it being kind of a performed thing, I wanted to include stuff that happened in areas that I lived. So, like, drawing from events that were local when I was in, like, high school, in different areas of Canada, and things like that. Which is all background stuff that we didn't ever hit. Like, I look forward to any of it coming up in the future. It's there. But, yeah, just, I guess she is a little based on my mother. And that's where the van comes from, because we had one of those. And I felt confident enough in my ability to quickly kind of get my feet under me. So the becoming like the mom for the coterie was like it felt very convenient. Like it fit. And when I was reading the vampire rulebook, the description of Bruja in the kind of the current sense was that they could be seen as like the people that would go out to like protest social issues. And it being 2020, that was like kind of very near and dear. So I wanted different aspects of these things. I told Jacob that I was trying to create a monster, and he told me not to because we would get to there eventually. But
what do you mean by that, though, Jacob?
I didn't tell you not to. I never tell my players a damn thing. I will suggest, and then if you push back and you're like, no, I really want to do this, then that's what you're going to do, and that's what's going to happen. So I want to be very clear. I never tell my players not to do anything. I will advise there might be consequences to this choice, but it is your choice to make, and then I will sit back and delight in the consequences because I'm a monster. So what I meant by that was you can't help but... Part of what Beast I Am, Less Beast I Become is that you either become a monster by choice or you become a monster just without any control. At some point you're going to need to make monstrous decisions, so it's not something that you necessarily need to fold into the character concept. Be the kind of person that you want to be, and then we make them a vampire, and eventually they'll do something monstrous. Whether or not they become a monster is up to you, but it is inevitable that you will do something monstrous. Which is why when I see people going like, oh, everybody's such a cinnamon roll and they gotta be protected, and I was like, this isn't gonna go the way you think it's gonna go, probably. Somebody's gonna do something that at some point you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't like that. No, that's no good. This is ultimately a horror game.
Yeah.
So
But what did you mean by
Jacob
creating a monster,
suggested
Corey? Yeah.
not
No,
create a
I'm
monster.
sorry,
So I
excuse me.
thought for a long period of time about what I personally would consider like monstrous behavior or like a thought set, and it was just more like someone who doesn't respect someone else's agency, and that's kind of where the root of the wanting to turn the daughter came from, and having a character that wants something is very different for me because I don't really want things. But it was definitely like outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm just more interested in, like, I like this idea of, like, you wanted to create a monster, right?
Yeah.
And just, like, what did you envision, right? Because you still want to make a character that works with other people, which I think might be the struggle with a lot of vampire games, is that you get a lot of people who aren't on the same page about the characters they want to create because they are given, again, the entire setting is like everybody's got this real bad thing inside them, right? That's going to make them do bad things eventually. At one point or another, you're just going to do something bad, and that's just what's going to happen. Right?
Yep.
What we would consider as a normal human in normal human culture would be bad, right? Like break a law or do something like that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm interested to hear like what you had in mind. Like, what do you consider to be a monster?
Like, it's complicated. It just has to do with like very basic human interactions.
Did you mean more like, did you have more of an idea of like a classic vampire, which you would assume a modern, like a vampire would look like? Like, you know
vampires are really boring to me. Like they're heavily like romance based in a lot of fiction, or they're so much a slave to their instincts that they're not really a person.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make a person who is willing to do something that I find abhorrent.
Okay.
Such as, like, you know, turn my daughter into a vampire. Or try to, like I put points into like etiquette stuff because I wanted my character has a drive, and I wanted to be able to achieve that through social politics rather than fighting. But at the same time, like the rejection of authority that Bruja have is also kind of like with my social anxiety, have a real big problem with authority figures. Like, I just like climb up a wall, climb over the roof of the van, and hide in the footwell. That's kind of my reaction to like anyone who could have control over my life. Like, ugh. Yeah. So like someone who's willing to work within those spaces and is willing to do anything to get what they want.
Because Jordan, you said Jordan's been a vampire for a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
I just like the idea of like she's starting to fully realize, hey, I can actually kind of do whatever I want. You know, within reason. There's rules, right? Vampire rules.
I had her in my character stuff turned like a decade before we played, so I had stuff researched for like 2006, 2007.
Okay.
And it's again related to sort of the family dynamic that I had set up for her, where she's like local to the island, but remember how like vampires weren't able to come back to the island or visit the island for a period of time, so it was like she was off island for a reason.
Yep.
And then could come back, but still at this point has like the obligations to like the Camarilla.
Yeah.
How old was your daughter when you were turned? Or embraced?
Because she's college age now, so I was thinking that she was probably, like originally I was thinking she was like high school when that happened, but now I'm thinking she maybe was a little bit younger. I had 3 kids planned, but I think I want to flip their ages so that the daughter was younger when events occurred.
Yeah. Yep.
Which are based on like news
Hank,
items that happened
the kids
in Grand Prairie when I was in like high school. So,
Man, now that I'm thinking about it, it's got to be the worst if you get turned into a vampire and you're like 8. Do they turn kids?
No,
I'm just thinking about like
as a rule.
Yeah,
It happens.
It happens sometimes. Yeah.
Yes.
it's like being a Highlander.
That would
Come
suck.
on.
No, it suck. No one would ever take you seriously. You're just like, I'm a vampire. Like, yeah, you're 8. You can't even drive. Like, I don't care how old you are.
Yeah. It is super yikes when it happens. Like, it is yikes on bikes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's super bad. Usually when that happens, like, sire and child are hunted down. And just like, this is a masquerade breach. Because if you're a person, if you're an adult, you can kind of like, change identities and move cities or do whatever it is you need to do to maintain the masquerade. When you are a never growing, you're a 100-year-old person in an 8-year-old body. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, like 8-year-olds grow fairly quick. So if you're not making any, like you're not growing out your shoes, you're not growing up, it's hard to be in that same grade over and over in the same town.
Yeah.
Just gotta find another vampire child and sit on their shoulders and get a trench coat. And then you can go into movies
go to
without being
vampire
beat.
movies. Yeah. Oh, sick. The official vampire trench coat to go to official vampire movies.
You can only go and see Blade or Underworld. That's it.
Oh.
How about
Sick.
your other?
So Jessica is Jessica I chose as a character I wanted something I could play that I felt like I could at least play somewhat consistently, so I wouldn't have like just weird, suddenly she's super nice for no reason, because that whole you're not your character is a separate person, and so I was like, what would have happened if I had stayed with that group of friends in high school that I absolutely abandoned? Where would that have gone? probably this direction. Probably, definitely stayed in the same city the entire time. Never would have left. Would have definitely been catty. Would not have met very good people. Just kind of that area. And like other stuff was like Jessica, the name I actually grabbed as was a name that I potentially tried to get people to call me when I was around 12. That didn't work out.
Instead of Heather.
I didn't like my name. I didn't like the name Heather. It was just a name I didn't care for at the time. That's changed since then. And I wanted a name that could be... I was incredibly jealous of people who had names that could be nicknamed down. So, but I still wanted a girl name, but that could be nicked down to a boy's name. So Jessica, Samantha, Alexandria, those were names I desperately wanted anyone to call me.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't convince anyone to do that when you're 12, and trying to explain that is weird. And then they're all like, but that's not your name. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'm Jessica. I was actually really thrilled when you called me Jess, because that was like weird. And like, but also a different nickname I wasn't expecting. I was like, nice. So just kind of just grabbing things that I'm like, okay, well, I understand that feeling, I understand that thing, and this is where I kind of would have gone probably over here. I don't understand the mean girl mentality to a high enough degree, but I've definitely had enough of those friends to know what the actions are going to be. So it's kind of where I went with
I
that.
disagree with that statement.
There's strong elements of you and Jessica too, right? Like she's crafty. She's got an Etsy store, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was an Etsy store was a thing I actually tried to do once that I failed horribly at. So the idea that something would be successful in that range was fun.
You didn't fail.
Trying to do an Etsy store is hard.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get people to pay attention to your stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna back up Adam. You didn't fail. You tried.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference.
There's a big time difference.
Yeah,
You did great.
big time.
Just wasn't the time or place in your life for it.
So, here's a question: of the characters, who are you all? Just try not to think about it. Just name a character. But of the characters, who are you most afraid of, as a person?
Oh, Joe.
Joe.
Oh,
Hands
yeah. Terrified. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's Joe.
Yeah.
I think I'd be pretty comfortable around Joe. Jessica maybe would be an issue, because again, she reminds me of people that I avoided.
We never saw Jessica feed.
She never needed to,
No, she didn't need to.
so she wasn't going to.
It's a big
Silas would have noted that.
Yeah.
You notice that she like
what's this person
she
all
seemed
about?
to like not understand how to interact with a lot of like other vampires or do things, so it's like curiosity in that respect, but also staying back because you don't want to do the wrong thing, especially in a social situation.
I'm like scared of Joe now. I think I would be most scared of Jessica in like 10 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like Jessica is the most powerful of all of us. Right?
Out of
Jessica
curiosity,
the character.
Yeah.
Jacob, is
Yeah, I'm
a
sorry.
12th generation primogen common?
It's happened. I wouldn't say common, but it's happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually. So for those of you that don't know, Primogen is a Camarilla term for kind of being on the Vampire Council. The Camarilla are still adhere to a feudal system of government, adhering to the 6 traditions. Cool. Hey, I'm nailing this 25 words or less thing, I think.
Yeah, you're doing great.
I'm pretty proud of myself.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Adam, who's been in a room with me when I've talked about vampire, goes like, yeah, man, this is great.
This is wonderful. You're doing your best. I don't even care if you want to talk at length. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see a problem with it.
Oh, I've
See,
been on the
okay,
street with
so
Jacob where he
Jacob-
turns to you and it's just like, don't get me started unless you mean it.
all you need to do, Jacob, is drive to like White Horse with Adam in your car, and then he'll just do anything.
Yeah. That's how I become best friends with anyone.
Yeah, got him
Oh.
to watch anime. Like,
Beej and I's bond is unbreakable at this point.
Well,
Just got to spend like
all right,
7
man.
days in a car with me.
that sounds. I would love that. I would use
you
vacation
do
days
have to kiss a
make that
toe.
happen.
You have to kiss a toe.
Yeah, you got to kiss.
That wouldn't be the first time.
Sick. All right.
Yeah. Whatever. Please up the stakes.
Yeah,
Come on.
please.
I'd be more willing to kiss a toe attached to a live human being than that thing that you guys drink. Ugh, it's gross.
That wasn't that bad.
I'm sorry.
It
We're
was-
talking
it was-
about Road Quest. Am I?
Yep. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
talking
you.
about Rogue Quest. Sorry.
Okay. No. I
Not
just
sorry.
context. I don't
Do you
know
have
if
anything
this
else
is
you wanted
just
to
like.
say, Heather? We kind of cut you off there.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I don't know. I don't think so.
You had fun though. Do you like Jessica?
I
You
like
like the
Jessica a lot.
character.
I like how I was a little afraid to go with a character that might be just mean at people sometimes because
It's not you.
it's not a thing I like to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I like how bratty she is.
Yeah. I do too. I enjoy it very much.
Yeah. Same
Like
here.
the-
Because. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cameron.
Oh, I just really appreciated Joe and Jessica's instant like recognition of the others. Like they immediately had a dynamic,
Game recognizes
Right?
game.
right? Of
Yes.
like, I imagine Jessica is basically Jordan's daughter's age,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, probably around there.
like just drops in and doesn't leave a scene behind, like one of those precision engineered Chinese.
And I will definitely infantilize her.
Yeah, and I will definitely probably hate you for it.
Oh, I'm so glad we get to play more.
Yeah, we do.
I'm so
it was good to
excited. If we could just I don't know, go into a bunker for a
Oh,
month
could we?
and just rock out some vampire, I'd be happy.
If I have my way, I'm just going to take vacation days and we're just going to do everything in one go. Mm-hmm. If it's possible to do that again, that's how I would like to do that again. But I have to be very careful because we're live and this is the internet, and saying something might happen is like a
that's true.
promise. Like if you whisper the word ice cream around a kid, that just means you're getting ice cream. Like
Ice cream!
yeah.
I will note that like when the plan was first proposed, it was like, yeah, you're gonna do everything in one day, and I was like, I'm gonna die. That's what's gonna happen. Why do you want to put me in a death trap? And then after it was like, oh, okay, no, I can do this again. This seems easy.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll and this is a promise, is we'll obviously start a Kickstarter, and then we'll go and rent like an old Gothic manor up on a hill, and we'll go and live in it for a month
Please, Cameron,
and
I have
produce
to read these
vampires.
comments.
And
Don't you fuck with me, Cameron.
Yeah.
we'll just drink red Kool-Aid for the entire time.
Ah, excellent.
Red is the
Exciting.
best flavor.
Then look
had
at the
me at
toilet bowl
Kool-Aid.
and be like, "Are we sure it's the food coloring?"
Yeah.
Oh God. That would be that'd be actually pretty great. That'd be
I'd be way more comfortable in an old Gothic manor. Like that's my first time up on a stage. Like I've worked background in theater and been an audience for live theatrical events, but never really had to talk up on that space.
Yeah.
It was easier with no one in the audience.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a lot easier
no.
without an audience. Yeah, I don't think it would have been the same thing with an audience.
I would have died if there was an audience, like
Yeah.
of all the seats filled at that
You
time.
see, Jacob, like often our audience exists only in text form on a screen.
Yeah. Generally.
No, I've gone up onto stages for improv stuff in order to direct the audience to do things, and it's the most terrifying thing I do every single time I've ever done it. Because they're all looking at you, and it's like, I don't understand why I'm here.
all-
Goodbye.
They're looking at
so
you expectantly.
no PAX one shot is what I'm hearing.
Probably not, no.
I mean,
But it's like-
not not right now. I won't ever rule it out completely because I do think we can get better at being afraid of things. So
Yep.
I would do a PAX one shot.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Are you done, Heather? Do you have anything else you want to say?
sure, I guess, maybe, I don't know.
No, I just mean for your character.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. My turn.
Oliver,
Patiently.
patiently waiting.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of making a vampire that's not a vampire. You know, I came into Jacob's game essentially like a self-insert, right? Like somebody that doesn't have a single clue what is going on, but they're entirely in over their head.
Yeah.
And I think I felt like, me personally, I felt like our game needed that because, I mean, we're trying to introduce new people to vampire, right? The world. So you need somebody that's going to ask the questions that the audience wants to ask. You need to be like, yeah, we've got this idiot who's a bit of a schlub, right? Mm-hmm. And he's willing to ask the questions like, wait a second, hold up, what's that? Because like you're just gonna like say things like sometimes characters are gonna say stuff like the Masquerade or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know what that is. And he's not stupid enough to, or he's not dumb enough to know that he's okay asking the dumb questions, right? Because he just wants to know.
Yep.
I just like the idea. I didn't like almost like, I mean, it almost approached like hipster levels of character creation where I'm like, I want to make a character that's not really a vampire. You know what I mean? Like, because everyone else was like kind of a vampire. They're all hot and like, you know what I mean? Like confident and strong, or like some variation of that. And then there's fucking Oliver. It's just like, what? Everybody's known somebody that's like Oliver in their life, right? Had that person. Even if they only interact with them for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
When we saw your character art, a bunch of us were like, "We've seen that person in line
I've had
at the
that
bank."
teacher before.
Yeah, like I think I said I've accidentally cut in front of this guy in line and like not even known it. Right?
Would you have cut in line in that person if you knew they were a vampire?
Hell no.
Yeah,
Clearly,
okay.
right? But like, you know, you just get in line and you hear this guy behind you being like, excuse, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, that's Oliver. It was a lot of fun. I had way more fun with that character than I thought I would in that universe, I guess. I don't know. It's just, he was fun to play. It's fun to be just a bit of an idiot. I mean, I always worry that my characters all feel kind of samey, because this is kind of the character I played in Cameron's Etten campaign, where it's like you have a character that is like thrust into a situation and just asking like, hey, is anybody else weirded out by this? Like, you know what I mean? Like nobody else is like, because everyone else is like, yeah, I'm a vampire now, fucking time to do, that's it, man, that's it's done.
Yeah.
And nobody's like, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why is this? This is all really weird.
They've had time to kind of get used to the night as well.
You
Let me know. I do have a question for you, Adam. I'm sorry, Heather. Go ahead.
I've seen a lot of Dice Friends campaigns, and I'll agree this character is similar. I still think it's pretty different because your character was just like, well, I've got cool vampire powers now, and I want to help, so all the animals to me, I'm helping. Which is, I feel like, a little bit more different than some of your other characters have been, where you're just asking questions. You were trying to do things, just not necessarily the things that anyone thought was like the best idea. But it was great to have Corey freak out every time, or Jordan rather, freak out every time Oliver was like, I have brought birds to me, and
like,
because we want to know things, right? Or I'm just going to pick up this phone and start talking to a person that you don't know anything about.
I think that's kind of rooted in like my lack of respect for other people making their own choices. But again, in a collaborative setting, I think I overdid it a bit.
Yeah, I think I like making characters too, especially in settings like this, like you said, like a collaborative setting. Like I like to make characters that are very easy to get a reaction out of the other characters without making things difficult for them. Right? Like I'm not trying to make anybody have a miserable time. I'm just trying to like give you this fucking idiot that you can be like, wow, this guy's a moron. You know what I mean? Like oh my god, like they're just doing something stupid, right? Like you don't know the rules? Like come on brother. Work with me here, you know?
So here's my question. Because a lot of what you've said so far is a lot of like inside out. I want to make this idiot. I want to do this for the chat. I want to do this for the audience. I want to do this for the other people. What do you want to get out of it? Where do you want to see Oliver go? What do you want to experience through Oliver's eyes?
I don't know. You know, I do like the idea, like you said, like all of us are vampires, right? And we're all going to do something bad at some point. And I just like the idea of Oliver, who is still doesn't actually believe that he's a vampire. Like it's still kind of in shock. He's like, I'm alive forever. You know, like that's terrifying. Like that's like you're alive forever. Everyone you know, your whole life, everyone that you used to know is going to die. They're all going to go away, and you're going to keep on moving on forever. I mean, granted, you don't get staked or you don't stand in the sun or do anything stupid, right? But you're also in over your head.
Kill you.
Okay. Well,
Go to torpor, which is like death.
Yeah. And I just like it's like forever is forever, you know. And I don't know. Like I like the process of. I mean, at some point, Oliver is going to be tempted. Like I don't care how nice you are or how good intentions you have. You know, when you give somebody this kind of power, like something bad's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what happens. And I'm trying to think about it, like, how would I approach this if I was in Oliver's situation? It's like, I don't know. You give somebody who has been essentially bullied their entire life, like, unlimited power, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, he's going to push back, right? And then he's going to push back, and he's going to be like, oh, fuck. This is what this feels like? He's like, oh, no. You're all fucked. And then there's going to be, like, you know, an ebb of peaks and valleys, right?
Yeah.
Of just being like pushing too far. And then like he's going to I would assume maybe push too far. He's like, oh God, what have I become? Right. You know what I mean? Like, where's the limit?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like the idea of what's Oliver's limit and how far is he willing to go to try to preserve, like, how long is he going to try to preserve that shred of humanity that he's still holding on to?
Yep.
And at what point he's going to accept, like, no, you're alive forever. This is it. This is it, man. This is who you are now. And he's like, well, fuck. Now I've got a whole new set of rules because I couldn't even figure out the other life, right? I couldn't figure out humans. How am I going to figure out vampires? Now I'm definitely over my head because I'm bad enough.
Yeah.
Right?
And who is going to protect you? Who are you going to ally with? Because as much as vampires hate other vampires, they need each other.
God, I'm so excited to play more.
Yeah. It's just like...
I was going to say, should we take a quick commercial break? Seems like a reasonable time. And and then we can come back and maybe we've got a couple of questions from the chat and can talk about stuff some more.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Hey, happy to be here.
Yeah.
Hello. I broke it. Broke the silence.
Yeah, you did it. I was going to wait. I was just going to let everybody stew. Let them stew.
So I have a question for Jacob. Just in general, what else is available in World of Darkness?
Oh, God.
Well, everybody get comfy.
You testing that 25-word limit thing, are you, Corey?
I mean, because like when we were playing, I was watching the chat, and they're all like, "Ooh, it'd be sweet to see them do Changeling," or like
Changeling and Vampire.
Yeah, and I'm like, what's that?
In the World of Darkness, there are a couple of lines. Currently, with World of Darkness, Vampire 5th Edition is the only 5th Edition game that is, like, it's the only one that's gone up to 5th Edition. There are a couple of different World of Darkness partners, for example, Onyx Path Publishing, that had the 20th anniversary version of Vampire, and that was very successful. And then they went and they did a 20th anniversary version of most of the other settings. So within the World of Darkness, there are a couple of different playable things. Werewolf the Apocalypse, Mage the Ascension. So usually they get released generally in that order. So it's usually Vampire with each edition. Vampire, Werewolf. Werewolf 5th edition has been announced by, I believe, Hunters Entertainment, who is another World of Darkness partner. And that is... The narrative conceit behind Werewolf is rage against the dying of the light. Essentially, werewolves are trying to save nature and Gaia and fight against corruption and things like that. That does not mean that they are good guys. They have done some terrible, terrible things throughout history, but the narrative conceit is rage against the dying of the light. The apocalypse is here. What do you do during it as a werewolf? And how do you balance your human life versus your wolf life, essentially? Then there's Mage the Ascension. Mage the Ascension is... the narrative conceit behind that is, to my mind, consensual versus personal reality. Is what you believe more important than what everybody believes? Or is the safety of consensual belief more important than your own personal belief? And it has to do with magic, but magic with a K. Capital M, by the way, because again, World of Darkness loves them capital letters. Then there's Wraith the Oblivion, is you're dead. What's next? It is, in my mind, the most hopeful of the World of Darkness games, but it is also one of the saddest. You play a ghost, and you try to navigate what it is to be dead within the World of Darkness. Changeling the Dreaming, the narrative conceit behind that is how do you hold on to wonder in a mundane world? It can also be sad, but you play fairies, which is awesome.
That
but
sounds cool.
Yes, it can be very cool. Yes.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, it can
Call
also
dibs,
be very,
Red
very
Cap.
sad. Yes, Red Cap are one of the kiths. Kiths are the different types of fae.
Knife time.
Cameron's trying to fuck me up. So, and then there were a couple of other lines within the World of Darkness. Demon the Ascension, which came in near the end of kind of the World of Darkness line before it got picked up in the 20th anniversary editions again. Hunter the Reckoning, which was, this is what happens when humanity pushes back. And it was a bunch of humans that got imbued and suddenly could see all of the fucked up shit that was going on in the World of Darkness.
Oh, no.
And got messages on walls that said hunt the dead or fight for the future or hunt the dead. Hunt the dead was a big one. And they got superpowers that no other human could see, and they slowly just went crazier over time, more mad the more they kind of got into things. There's a lot. There are a lot of different lines. Those are some of the major ones, though, within the World of Darkness.
Hunter actually provided the armature for how I view D&D paladins.
That'll do
and
it.
how I run paladins in my D&D games.
That'll do her. Somebody who believes so hard that they're right that they eventually go bananas with it. That'll do it. Yes. Good. Excellent. There you go. There's a rundown of the different lines. Oh, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Ever?
Okay. We can ask different questions now. I'm satisfied.
This is a stream of firsts right here.
My shoulders are real tight right now.
I just wanted to know.
Tough. Yeah.
So there were quite a few questions about the Session 0 stuff, and we talked about how that was really important for you, Jacob, to not only do the Session 0, but to have that actually as part of the stream and to show that to everybody. And there's been lots of great feedback about that. People wanting to use it for their to illustrate it to their own play group and that kind of stuff.
Fantastic.
There's a question about was there anything that you had planned going into it that you changed because of what happened during Session 0?
No, I had nothing planned ahead of time.
All right. Well, so you didn't plan on them going into undersea space? The sub-ocean,
no. I mean, I hadn't originally, but that was hard cut. I truly like. I made a city. I wrote a city, and all of the people in it, just in case they wanted to and then you drop 4 people into it. I really didn't plan anything ahead of time, and I used the elements that the players gave me and what they wanted, what they said some of the players' desires were, what the characters' desires were, because those are sometimes different things, and sometimes they even conflict, and that's real fun, to then feed in and fold everything in so that we all created the space that we got to play in.
Did you have something in particular that you wanted, where you wanted the players to sort of end up? Obviously they sort of were going along. Not, I guess it wasn't their sire, but their clans were had given them a task to do, or to meet up with and stuff.
No. And that's the thing, is that I understand a lot of the instinct when you're watching something like this is like, the storyteller has a plan and they want this thing to happen, or they're all given a task, and whether or not the players do the task is up to them. I didn't plan anything like that ahead of time. This is as close to as I can make it so that we can all tell the story together. Real life in extraordinary circumstances. That's usually the maxim that I try to run World of Darkness games in.
Nice. There's also, speaking of Session 0, there's also a question for Heather. You changed your clan from Tremere to
Tyteef to Toreador.
I saw that question show up in the chat a lot. I never chose Tremere. I misspoke and said Tremere instead of Toreador during the one session, because there were a lot of names going around.
Very similar sounding name.
And at one point I thought that Cameron and I had picked the same clan. And so when he said he was Tremere, I was like, oh, okay, that must have been the right one. And I said the wrong thing. Originally I went Tyteef on Jacob's suggestion, because it was stated as this would be a way to do a good way to start out, because then you can pick a couple of your Banes.
You get access to more powers, or like more variety.
Yeah, you get more of a thing, and then between and there were a lot of clans to pick from, and I mean originally I saw the Rose and I was like, that one's pretty, I want to be that one, but Tyteef probably makes more sense to play. And then between just before we started filming Session 1, Jacob was like, you should try Toreador, and I was like, oh well, that was the one I wanted to try anyway, so I guess I'll do that.
Isn't that one's pretty I want one, like the Toreador motive in the first, like that's exactly what it should be.
Yeah, well, so I have a bad habit with if I get overwhelmed or freaked out, then I regress to some old coping mechanisms, and generally the idea of liking girly things is like I can't do that, and I went really hard on that moment of like, oh no, roses are girly. So it's just what happened.
Yep, I think it worked out. No.
I'm very happy about it. I'm very glad with the choices I ended up.
There was also for Adam. There's a lot of I would say disappointment, shall we say, in your sire. You're like, where the heck is this sire? Deadbeat sire. Who left you all alone.
That's up to Jacob.
So
I like the idea.
That's up to you.
There's a question whether you the player, or Oliver or Jacob, does anybody know who the sire is?
I don't. The player doesn't. I don't think Oliver does either. I haven't really thought about it, because I do like the idea of like some vampire saw Oliver and were like, look at this miserable pile of humanity, like he needs some help. Like, you know what I mean? So he's like, all right, well maybe this will work, and they just decided to turn them.
A pity embrace.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's interesting that a lot of people in the audience assumed there was a really high-powered reason for why Oliver got turned, and it could have just been as simple as someone effed up while feeding.
Yeah. Yep. That would fit very much into like who Oliver is. Like it just happened by accident. He just like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I like that too.
Like you need permission to embrace somebody. That's from the Camarillas, my understanding. And so the fact that they kind of they effed off on you kind of says they didn't have that.
I do like the idea of an episode of like Oliver ends up on, like they said in Twitch chat, on Maury Povich. You are not the sire. Like, yes, yes.
Is there an equivalent of DNA testing to find out who's the sire?
Yeah, can we do that?
Yes.
So Oliver could find that out. He'd be like, I kind of want to know who decided this would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Silas specifically can do that. If
Use
he
our
rolls high
special
enough successes.
blood wizard.
Yep. Specifically, Silas could do that. So if Oliver ever wanted to know, and Silas rolled enough successes, and Oliver was willing to give Silas access to his blood, which is generally not something you want to do with the true
blood. I mean, Oliver wouldn't know. He'd be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, Oliver just do it.
Yeah, Oliver would be like, sure, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I can actually, like, a taste for blood does that, doesn't it? Or is it one of the rituals now?
Taste for blood, I believe it does that.
Right.
If you get enough successes, then you know, like, you can go up the chain and be like, cool. All right, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I didn't really put a lot of thought into like who Oliver's sire was, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that people are curious, but I just didn't think it was that important at the time, I guess.
Are you curious? Is that something that you would like to be part of the game? And it doesn't have to be. Like, if Oliver's totally just like, this is what I am, I don't care who made me, cool. But if that's something that you, Adam, as the player, are like, I would like Oliver to go through that. And Oliver doesn't even need to care. Adam might be interested to see who the sire is and wants to see that play out in the game. Oliver might not give a shit.
I would love to play Oliver interacting with his sire for the first time.
Okay.
I love
that would be, oh boy. Yeah, I'm just picturing it. Yeah.
I love the idea that like Oliver is like, I don't really care who my sire is, and the idea that he doesn't care annoys his sire's like, what, you don't care?
Like, what do you mean you don't care? Like, I don't know, I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. Like, yeah, I am who I am, and
it's like that's what gets his sire to come over and like, hey, okay, this is important.
Yeah.
There's actually a question that I was really curious about is usually for our Dice Friends sessions, obviously we're playing live and we have chat turned off. Mm-hmm. So it's not distracting us. Obviously this was pre-recorded, so chat wasn't there, but this was kind of a unique situation where you got to watch yourselves sort of for the first time doing playing the session with chat. I mean, not everybody was there all the time, but for those of you who were able to join during the pre-recorded sessions, how was that a good experience for you? Where you're like, oh yeah, I said that, didn't I? Huh. Okay.
It's more just I'm a constant. Whenever I don't watch a lot of our stuff or stuff that I'm in, just because. But I was hanging out in Twitch chat for a lot of these sessions. For most of them, I think I missed one. But the other three, like 0, 1, and 3, I think I was hanging out for. I'm amazed by like our ability to make things. I don't know. It's kind of cool, right? Like you don't realize it when you're making it. You're like, oh yeah, I was part of a thing, like no big deal or whatever. And then you see like the after, and you're like, holy shit. Yeah. And sometimes we're actually pretty funny. You know? Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes we're just like doing cool stuff and we're like, yeah, that's pretty cool, right? It's easy to just like want to move on to, like, because when you record something, you just move on to the next thing. You're like, okay, well, you're only as good as what you did for them lately. You know what I mean? Come on, content creator, create me some content, right? And when you actually watch it, you're like, wow, some of the stuff we make is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it was good in the sense of like, oh, okay, I got a refresher of some of the terms I hadn't heard in a while because I don't walk down the street and people say kaitif, which is kind of too bad. I wouldn't mind that because that would definitely help cement some terms in my brain. But watching, there's some of that like, oh shoot, I am a funny person sometimes moments, but also just I left a session. I was like, that was fun. Oh shoot, other people are gonna see it now. Oh, they all liked it. Everything's good again. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. I don't look like an asshole.
It's always a little spooky, right?
That just reminded me, like, walking down the street and not hearing kaitif, right? A partner of mine years and years ago told me a story about her sitting in a cafe doing homework and hearing the people at the next table talking about playing vampire and trying to decide what character to make. And she just whispered, William Malkavian, without looking up from her work.
Yeah.
And watching them be like look around.
If that's who I think you're talking about, that's very funny. That actually makes it funnier, yeah.
Probably not. You don't know this person, I think.
All right.
I think.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, the Malkavians are sometimes called the Clan of Madness, but a lot of times it's a clan of insight. It's somebody who can see aspects of reality and aspects of the world and people and themselves, and they don't know how to articulate it. And sometimes that can be perceived as mad.
Mood.
Yeah. Heavy mood.
Yeah. Yep.
I like reading audience feedback, like chat comments, the YouTube comments, things on other forums. I don't go digging on other forums, and I don't Google the stuff, but watching the replay live was really fun, especially since while we were performing it, it felt like time stretched on forever. It felt like I was like too slow every single time I did something. But it turns out I wasn't, so...
No.
That's the kind of perspective that a few months and then watching it later on camera, it works.
Yeah.
I mean, the setting we had with the, in the theater with the, so you're on stage, but there's no audience and things. Obviously it's sort of unique, and there's a couple questions about, that Vampire the Masquerade in particular. You're playing ostensibly sort of bad guys, bad people who are doing rather immoral things often. And
That sounds like human beings to me.
And remember that the humans aren't good.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're all just people.
But is there something that an aspect where you sort of are aware of the sort of performance aspect of it, the audience watching in the future aspect of it, that you have to be a little bit careful about what things going on that you're doing, or did that kind of drop away as you were playing?
Mostly just dropped away. I don't know. Once you start recording, like once you get into it, you kind of just forget that. I don't know. For me personally, I just forget the camera's on. Once it gets going, right? Before we start, I'm hyper aware of like, there's lights, there's a camera, there's everything else. There's a non-zero amount of people are going to see this at some point. And then it all starts and I'm just kind of like, whatever, just do my thing, right?
Yeah.
It's always easier when it starts.
If I was capable of modifying my behavior or censoring what I do, I don't think I would be here.
That's fair.
Yep.
We're not supposed to look at the cameras anyway, so I just looked at the other players. Like,
yeah, and I did my very best to try to make this feel like, at least as your storyteller, that we were just like grabbing a pizza and playing Vampire for a weekend, and not to worry about any of the cameras. I tried to do my best to kind of bring everybody into the same space so that we didn't worry about all the weird ass shit that was going on.
And part of the fact that we recorded meant that we could cut out anything that was like, this weird thing happened, or that somebody's not comfortable, that got said, that got recorded, that maybe we don't want the audience to see for some reason. I don't know, I have a temper tantrum and I run off the stage and I don't want people to know about it. Knowing that stuff like that can get cut out, or like if you feel like you're like, I need to take like 10 minutes right now, and that 10 minutes is going to go away. Because while I know the audience is like, oh, but show us the whole recording, like most of the time that stuff that gets cut out is actually not that interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, really, Heather, to be honest with you, Heather, I was just waiting. Any minute, Heather's going to blow up and storm off this stage, throw a big tantrum.
I'm well known for blowing up and causing.
It was like a ticking time bomb, man. I was like, here it comes.
Release the uncut show with all the
release the Snyder cut
with everybody looking things up in books.
Oh man,
and that's especially. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gamer.
Oh yeah, just the cut where I tell a 15-minute long joke and then forget the punchline.
Yeah.
Right.
Also known as a horse story.
I feel seen. Yeah.
But like, accidentally, like the spontaneous emergence of the horse story.
Yeah.
Either that, or I just forget that I'm talking halfway through. Right. Start looking.
Been there. God.
Yeah.
For myself,
especially with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No.
Canadian standoff. For myself, I am constantly aware of the camera, and I think that's like why I don't get like a lot of desert bus photos, because like the moment the camera is in the room, I'm just like, and that's not a very good photo. I don't make a habit of a lot of behavior that would have to be censored, like. I generally don't swear, even though swearing was allowed on this. I don't have to worry about swearing because it's not something I go to.
Yeah, I totally
in addition to saying other worse words that can just like immediately pop into your mind when you're trying to like react quickly to stuff. There's also instances where I brought up certain information because this was supposed to be an introductory campaign, and I know our audience wouldn't be necessarily aware of or familiar with things in addition to the players. So there was an impact, but it was tried with a mind towards trying to make the performance better for the audience.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do.
That's all we can ask of you, really.
Yeah. For me, once we got down there, like once we started, I didn't care. I mean this with love, chat. I didn't think about you at all. I just wanted us to do our best and to do, like, just to put out there what we were going to put out there. And that was kind of on. I felt a lot of pressure to make sure that you felt as comfortable as possible because we haven't worked together in a setting like that before. My favorite star is the dog star because it's serious. I take things real seriously. It's just that's just kind of how I roll. So I did feel a lot of pressure to make sure that all of you felt really, really comfortable and to make sure that my obvious enthusiasm for this as something that I've worked on wasn't overwhelming for anybody and that everybody felt comfortable and welcomed and not just like, oh, look, Jacob's just vibrating in his chair. You want to talk about some vampires? Like, I didn't want any of that. So there was a lot of me just kind of going like, all right, Jacob, you just need to keep it down here at like a fucking 3.
Don't scare them. Don't scare them. Don't scare them.
Yeah, seriously, it felt like a first date. Like, the whole time. It felt like a 6-hour first date. Just like, that's cool. Awesome.
6-hour first date, eh? How was it?
Yeah.
I guess it went well.
it went well because we're doing it again. So
Getting a second
Yeah.
date,
You called
baby.
me back.
Let's go axe throwing. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mute my own mic when I cough, but at the same time, I felt way more comfortable just because you were the storyteller in the setting, because like you know a lot and are comfortable, so I could offload the knowledge storing part of my brain to you. Like you could take care of that.
yeah. And that's why I brought like the cheat sheets and everything. I was just like, I will take care of everything. Please let me lay my players down here in this blanket of tale. Like I tried to do as much as I could. Like even with like Adam was like, I don't have a pencil. I was like, I brought it back. Here you go. What else everybody need? You need a wet nap? You need a nappy? I got a whole fucking thing. Like I got hand sanitizer for everybody. Like I went.
You gave us
ham.
all like fisherman's friends. You got drinks for everyone. Like you went.
That's our
we got these
Jacob.
duotangs.
Oh yeah.
Oh, mine's in the kitchen. Dinger. Everybody
But
had
I'm
theirs.
keeping this
but me.
forever. It's got where my character sheet
This
goes.
is the nicest duotang I've ever owned.
Whoa, tank.
Like what? You paid 75 cents for these?
Huh?
Nothing.
No.
$800.
No, you took the price tag
those
off.
Those are fucking quality. No, but it was your first time doing this thing, so I wanted to make sure, like, because I said, you don't have to bring anything. I got you. And I just wanted to make sure that it was going to be the best thing that it could be, and you didn't have to worry about anything. You could just offload that part of whatever might be cluttering up your brain to just sit down and enjoy the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that helped a lot. It showed, and it helped a lot. For me, personally.
I'm
I can't
very
speak
glad.
to everybody else. But
Chat wants to know what a duotang is, and they're these folders that have these like push pin holes that you stab through your paper, and you keep all of your schoolwork in there.
But they also have, generally, they've got like the little folder on the other side in case you don't need to stab all your things into the paper yet.
Oh yeah,
because
you
you're
get,
still
like,
using it.
This has
very
two
important.
pockets. Two
We had to get like 10
pockets.
of these a year for school.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah,
hand
I've
in,
got
like,
more.
your essays or project work in them.
I've got 30 of them still on my bookshelf
Yeah.
that have lab reports in them still.
So much
need to
better
throw those
than
away.
binders for smaller things.
Yeah. Pretty much all of the varied things that I do and am, the Venn diagram of all of the weird shit that I do, and like all of the storytelling and the game writing and the voice acting and just being up my own ass about most everything. The perfect Venn diagram, like in the middle of that, is running games. Like, yeah.
Apparently, those duotang, the name is a Canadian.
Yeah, it's a
brand name.
Yes.
Canadian,
It's
just
Like
brand.
Kleenex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what we're talking about. Like when I say bunny hug.
Oh god.
Nobody knows.
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm
What's
Like-
the name for milk? What's the
Mia.
Saskatchewan? What was that?
I was just making a bad joke. Never mind.
Yeah, there's
What's
a
it?
prairie.
There's a prairie milk.
There's a
I
prairie
don't know
milk.
that one offhand.
You said
Yeah.
milk. I thought you said something
Vico?
different.
Vico.
Yeah,
it's
talking
Vico.
about
Vico.
Yeah.
Oh, Vico, yeah.
chocolate
Talking
milk,
about
right?
Vico. Yeah. Vico's
Yeah.
chocolate milk. Yeah.
So there are Canadian specific brands that we refer to.
Just to go on a complete aside, was anyone else just a little disappointed in the design of the University of Saskatchewan bunny hug definition hoodie?
Oh, I've not seen it.
Bunny hug is Chad isn't familiar, is what
right.
Saskatchewan
Jacob isn't
Knights.
familiar.
Only
Called
people
a
from
hoodie.
Saskatchewan.
Only people from Saskatchewan call it hoodie
It's a
bunny
hoodie.
hug. Yeah,
It's
it's a hoodie.
Yeah.
It's a hoodie or kangaroo.
Yeah, but like it's a very cute name for it, and the University of Saskatchewan sells a hoodie with the definition of a bunny hug on it, and I looked it up because I thought maybe I'd like one of those. And it's just not. I could do a better job. I call me. You know?
I could do way better. Yeah, I could do better. It's good to know your own worth, Cameron.
Yeah.
Right? I could do better than this. Yeah.
Jacob,
I always
there's
learn something. Yeah.
there was lots of very kind, positive words about your storytelling and your running of the game. And
Thank you.
some question about do you have any advice for a player or a storyteller or DM or whoever who's feeling kind of burnt out and not super creative?
Take a break. That's my best advice, is either take a break or take the time to remember why you loved the thing so much in the first place. Engage with it in a different way in order to light that spark again. Take breaks. If you're feeling burnt out, that means you've got nothing left in the tank. You got nothing. It's called burnt out because that fire is out. You need to take a break and kind of clear some stuff to kind of light that fire again. And even if you're in a running game and you kind of run out of gas halfway through, talk to your table, set a date, like, so that games, because I've been a part of so many games that, like, oh, we're going to take a break, and then those games just kind of go off into the ether. Just set a date. Be like, hey, I just need some time to disengage, and we're going to do that. My private gaming group, we have 3 games going, so when we get tired of one game, somebody else takes over storytelling duties for their game, and we play their game that month, for example. Like, it's a good way to switch it up if you still want to keep the same date and keep the momentum going. That'd be my recommendation. And that's how I personally avoid burnout, because I've been running my personal vampire games for years now.
Yeah, I don't think burnout doesn't just get better on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, yeah. Absolutely it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, especially in this day and age, there are so many different tabletop RPGs too. You know, sometimes, you know, a change is as good a break as a break. You know, just trying out some whole. You know, if you're super into D&D and have been playing D&D for 5 years with your group, switching to something like Vampire or something like, you know, Fiasco, or something that's like totally a different kind of way of playing. Or
even a board game,
revitalize
like just
things.
Something actually a little bit different, but everybody's still getting together to talk and chat. It doesn't have to be the same kind of collaborative storytelling thing. Just do something a little different. Give yourself time.
Yep.
Corey, you're muted. Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, I quit my game dev job 2 years ago from burnout, and there's really... that was because I had no choice at that point but to take a break, and it's hard. And you can't keep pushing and taking a break, or, again, sort of re-examining what brought you to that place in the beginning. Like, what inspired you? What was your motivation? That kind of thing helps. But definitely take a break.
Yep. Good advice.
Mm-hmm. And if you're in a game with the DM who or with the storyteller who is feeling kind of burnt out, you know, maybe you could think about, maybe you can try taking over or something, like, you know, for a little bit, or talk about that, because a good storyteller is definitely worth their weight in gold. You gotta make sure they're happy in whatever way you can. Keep your game going, or keep a game going, because that's really what it's about. Like, these are all basically just excuses to hang out with a bunch of fun people in a structured way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I always see it. Definitely not using people as a vehicle for story juice. Definitely not. That's not how I see it.
Yeah, they're just, give me more of your juice so I can fuel my story. I need to fuel the story, idiots. Everybody shut up. Jacob's got to fuel his story. Only give me story-related bits. And once I'm done squeezing every bit of story juice from your soul, I will cast you aside. Much like a boxer discards layer of useless fat.
Okay, Jacob, so I have this headcanon about my sire knives.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went to Vancouver to a battle of the cover bands, and he was lead singer in like a Procol Harum cover band, and he was singing like Whiter Shade of Pale, which should have been a clue, but like we hit it off real good. And, you know, he just loves music. So do I.
Do you want to cube that?
No.
Awesome.
Absolutely not. No.
Well, now it is canon.
Done. Awesome.
I just really enjoyed the idea I had for my sire that we discussed.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's fun. I think that's really fun and character appropriate.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. And unfortunately, we can't talk anything more about that because we're going to play more, and that might come up, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
And to answer some questions about that, it is not currently scheduled. It'll be in 2021, but there's no current date for when that's happening. But
We will let you know a date when we have a proper date.
we are
That is what happens when we have a date for things. We tell you because we want you to show up.
we obviously want it to happen just as much as you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it needs to wait.
Yeah, it's just I see it a lot where people seem to think we have a date planned out already, and they think we're just not telling them. And it's like, no, if we knew, we would tell you completely because we want you
can't
to
keep
show
a
up.
secret.
We don't want to show up and be like, oh, no one came because we didn't tell anyone to come to our party.
Yeah, that's the thing with community management too. Like especially like in the video game and some of the other work that I've done is people are like, why aren't you telling us? Well, because we can't yet. Like we'll be as transparent as possible, but we don't have a date yet. Yeah, but like I don't. I swear to God I don't. If I did, I tell you. I want to tell you. My whole job is to tell you things. That's the whole fucking gig. I want to, and I'm so sorry that I can't. Well, fuck you. Thank you. Good. Awesome.
Did you see the job posting that Disney put out today to be a community or a social media coordinator for the Star Wars?
Oh
No,
of them.
because I know. I like myself. I'm probably not going to look at that.
It's got to have some
excuse
serious
me,
turnaround.
but
yeah.
I noticed that in Rebels Season 1, Grand Admiral Thrawn is wearing a white uniform of a Grand Admiral instead of the appropriate uniform, which would be the gray of an Imperial Navy Fleet Admiral. And I was wondering if you could explain this discrepancy to me.
Wonder how long I could do it
I just spat that from the hip. Oh god, I want to shove myself in a locker.
Wonder how long I could do it for. I think I could last like a month.
I mean, it depends on
For Star Wars specifically?
how good at it you would have to be, right?
Oh, I'd be terrible at it. That's probably why I'd last a month.
Well, if you could
They'd
just,
probably fire me. Yeah.
if you could just troll everybody, then it would be different. But if you had to actually do it and be good at it, then
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, you just have to stop thinking of people as people. That's how you get by. That's how you get by.
Yeah.
So, any more questions?
Yeah.
Any more questions, Paul?
well, there is a few specific questions about, for instance, somebody is curious about about Chain's main squeeze. You remember
The Giovanni.
Yeah, and what their relationship with the Sabbat is, whether that's going to come into play.
Okay, so the
how much you want to answer this stuff? There will be more things later. There will be, we don't want to reveal any spoilers for possible future sessions. But
the Sabbat there is a possibility for folks to run into the Sabbat, which is essentially a now fractured apocalypse cult. Essentially, they call themselves the Sword of Cain, like Cain, because a lot of people think that Cain of Cain and Abel is the original vampire. So they're kind of broken, but there's a possibility to run into the Sabbat as a faction. There is a representative or 2 or 5 on Vancouver Island. Monica Giovanni is a member of the Hecata. They are not Chains and Monica are not in a relationship. Chains is gay, like straight up. He mentioned that his ex-boyfriend was Quinn Jackson, who is the sheriff on the other side. So you've got an anarch and a Camarilla sheriff that used to date. So Monica is not his main squeeze, nor any squeeze of any type.
Okay then.
She a necromancer.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Don't go squeezing.
No, not without incredible consent, or she'll make your skeleton walk out of your body. It's bad.
Oh, I need that.
Yeah.
This is a question that I don't fully understand the terminology here, but
Whoop.
Sorry, you got
Give me 1 second. Sorry, my headphones just died.
Oh.
Give me 1 sec, because you're coming out of the speaker now. Oh, God.
Well, do we want to take another break?
Sure, let's take a quick break. Hey, we're back.
Hello.
With
Hi.
Hello.
more talking about Not a Drop to Drink and Vampire the Masquerade. And one of the questions I was gonna ask here, which is sort of a specific to Vampire the Masquerade thing, but this person's asking about is saying other streams that they've watched where people do Vampire the Masquerade. They focus a lot on convictions rather than the tenets of the Chronicle.
Okay.
And for you, is that is that a personal choice for just how you like to run your games? So first, what are those?
Okay, so convictions are that's your character's thing. That's what your touchstone is kind of attached to. That person typifies a conviction. A conviction is something that your character believes in so much. That's what makes them a person. That's how they stay connected to their humanity. And when they go against their own personal convictions, like I was saying earlier, that erodes their humanity and gives the beast a greater hold. A Chronicle tenant is usually something at the beginning of the game. Everybody kind of agrees the type of game that they want to play, and the Chronicle tenants are like, don't kill, or it's just basically like, it's rules that everybody agrees on, and if somebody goes against those rules in the game, there are penalties. Sometimes they are used to kind of wrangle in what might be considered to be a problem player or somebody that's not communicated with well enough, so that there's an in-game trigger for, if you do this, bad thing happened to character, and you get stains on your willpower, and your humanity might go down. If your humanity goes down low enough, then you gone. So essentially, Chronicle tenants are sort of the conscience of the game. I decided not to use them for this game because I didn't want to. I thought we'd all be good with what we agreed on, and because we were doing a session 0, it wasn't something that I felt was necessary for this and this style of game. Personal convictions, though, what makes your character tick? Absolutely. That is to give me a big fucking plate of toast, because that shit's my jam.
Yeah, I remember you. That was a big part of the session 0, is going through all that, and the convictions and the people in the characters' lives that had sort of instilled them with various strong feelings about things.
Yeah, we did convictions, I think, in session 1, and I think
At the beginning.
The lines and veils we did in session 0 kind of take the place of tenants, because they're a little overarching group agreement.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And it even says in the rule book, like, pick and choose these tools that you want to use in these rules, because the number one rule in every edition of Vampire, the golden rule, has been do what works at your table. Yeah.
That's most games, right? Like, something
you'd think.
Yeah.
But like that's how you end up with the issues where there's like an antagonistic GM or game storyteller versus player thing.
Kind of, yeah. Or you get the player that's just like, oh, you said this was this? It's in the rule book because blah, blah, blah. Rule 1 was put into a lot of the World of Darkness books as the golden rule for rules lawyers. So that the GM could pick it up and be like, oh, look at the first rule, look at that one. It's not quite as antagonistic anymore, but the spirit of it is still in the game.
I mean, I think D&D calls it Rule 0, even.
Yeah.
Just what the DM's... If the DM says it's different than it says in the book, the DM's word is law.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't necessarily believe that it's the storyteller's rule is law, but the storyteller is the facilitator that everybody has placed their trust in. And I did say during the game, anybody can just say, Jacob, you do it, and I will... You know, if you're like, I've got this kind of idea about my character, but I don't want to think about it, but I want it to happen. Jacob, you do it. I'm fine with that. I like the you do it rule. I'm good with that.
I mean, there's lots of questions about the session 0, but I feel like for people who want more, they're just watching the session 0 that we did will give you a lot of ideas as to how to get that going. But do you have any particular advice for people who want to do a session 0 for their own campaign, whether for vampire or for a different setting?
Do it. Open communication is very important. You don't necessarily have to get down to the nitty-gritty. It's mostly what we did sort of in large was, what are you okay with? What are you not okay with? What kind of game do you want? Let's set expectations. It's all about setting expectations. You don't have to get super touchy-feely about it. You don't have to get in-depth as we did. I felt like we should have gotten as in-depth as we did because it was new players, new system, absolutely new thing that people have never seen before on the channel, new for most of the players, new for me because this is my first time running a game for you folks. And it was important to do that, but essentially session 0 is set expectations so that everybody at the table knows what to expect. That's, if you can go to my mind, again, I'm not an expert, I do not claim to be an expert, I generally think experts don't exist, but that's a conversation for a different time. It's all salt and pepper to your taste, but the point of session 0 to my mind is setting expectations at the table, and however it is you go about doing that, so long as everybody ends up on the same page with what's okay, what's not okay, and the style of game, you are golden.
Actually, that's something that I'm curious about. How was running a game like you've played in quite a few games for Loading Ready Run? How was it like running a game for Loading Ready Run for these people as opposed to your regular kinds of running a game, or your other sessions that you've run?
Oh, other sessions that I've run, like it personally?
Yes.
Like how was it different?
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Well, there you go.
Good answer.
I'm sorry, I don't have more. Like, yeah. Hold on. Yeah, it wasn't. It was the only thing that I had to be kind of clear on was the timing, and I trying to hit time, but that was a wonderful challenge of you kind of want to make sure that you get enough in to make it as satisfying for the players as possible, and to make sure that it can end on a satisfying note or a lovely cliffhanger. Yeah, which I don't mind doing to the audience, but I didn't want to do to the players, which is why I like playing in one day.
Yeah.
So were the players like goofing off more than you in one of your other groups, getting?
No. No, my private. I'm not going to call them out on stream, but no.
We couldn't even eat chips. Come on.
I mean, this microphone. I feel bad for anyone who has to listen to the audio of eating chips inside the microphone. Like,
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, no. I'm aware of how you feel about hitting the microphone, Cameron. I felt that in my soul when you hit your microphone.
Sorry.
On stage, and I couldn't even hear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I don't have like a more lengthy answer to that question.
No.
It's
That's good. It's
there were cameras.
Yeah. Well, I personally, I'm a little interested, curious, if you were more comfortable with Lure because of your experience as a player. Like, if Paranaya actually gave you any insight into how we operate.
I wanted you to be able to experience something new, so comparing or trying to take in information of anything that had gone previous, I threw out. I didn't know what to expect because we were all going to be in a new situation. Loading Ready Run and all of you took a huge risk with me and this, and it was up to me to honor that and to make sure that it was fresh enough and new enough and yet still familiar enough to appeal to the audience. There was a lot on this, and that's part of the reason why this was so short, is because this was a risk, and we just kind of had, we had an extra day at the theater, and you were all willing to give it a shot and step outside of your comfort zone and trust me, and yeah, it's I tried not to be informed by that too much, because which is weird for a person on the internet, I abhor comparisons and conjecture. Everybody does their own thing in their own way, and that's how I feel it should be viewed. I hate being compared to other people, not because I take a hit to my self-esteem or anything like that, but because nobody involved in that, of the people that are being compared to each other, or anybody that's being compared to each other, nobody likes being on the other side of that. And it's reductive and poopy. And I just wanted us to do our own thing, and I want us to continue to do our own thing within the context of our game. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, genuinely, if you had experience in like Studio C and threw it all out just to bring us something new and shiny at this theater during quarantine, like,
yeah. And I want to, for the next bit, I want to take it a little bit farther. Because when Adam said, oh, this game ended up a little bit wholesome. Okay. Now we're going to have a little more time. Oh, it did. Yeah. It totally did. And
yeah.
And it happened kind of organically and is amazing. And I want to see where we can all go.
I do
like
want
when
to
you
see
say it ended wholesome. All I could think of while we were in Chains' office, looking at his like banks of filing cabinets, was like, are you taking notes on a criminal conspiracy? Like, where are those files? Like, what?
I assumed he was a business manager. Like, he's got. You got to keep your files for tax purposes.
But what else is in the files?
Okay.
Like, how fast and loose is he running with his responsibilities as Baron of Vancouver Island?
The whole thing with Chains is so difficult because, like, I'm supposed to make sure y'all stay with the cam.
And we're all like, wow, this looks pretty and exciting.
Wow, shiny lights and fire.
Yeah.
Just
I'm
feeding
gonna
out in the open.
One person's going to compliment me for the first time, and I'm going to join their team, and I'm like,
maybe the Tremere vampire has opinions on, loose lip syncing chips.
Yeah.
And the pyramid got heavily truncated.
Quinn Jackson isn't the most personable individual.
Oh, he's terrifying.
I loved him. He's great. He's very straightforward.
He's a
Oh, no. I liked him, but as a character, he's terrifying, which I think he needs to be.
Yeah, no, both for me, because, like, Jordan's used to dealing with people like Tripathy, who are unreadable, and then...
Oh, the
people just live with their whims,
time.
and then, like, Quinn Jackson just wants to do his job correctly. He's gonna stick up his butt, but that's it.
And, like, if those filing cabinets were full of dead bodies, that would be actually quite comforting to Silas. The idea that they're full of, like, vampire business? Uh-oh.
I love the idea that it's dead bodies that have been made very flat and are filed like by last name or something.
Fresh pressed with an iron. You take the bones out, you skin just presses flat, right?
Gross. I hate it. That's gross.
Maybe he's a secret Shimisi.
Zamisi. There's no... It's one of the clans, and they do the flesh crafting. They're the ones that can just, like, take somebody's...
Don't say flesh crafting ever again.
Okay.
Oh, but it was such a beautiful word.
They can take your... They make body like clay. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, like, piss one off, and they just, like, poke you in the forehead and go,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then
go and be in the world now. You are art.
Yes.
I reread Uzumaki for Christmas. I'm not in a good mindset for this.
Yeah, they're not great. But it's weird. It's one of those words that doesn't really have like a true pronunciation. So sometimes people say Samisi, sometimes people say Shimishe.
That sounds fancy.
It's weird. And they actually just got released in the which is free, the World of Darkness, or Vampire the Masquerade Companion, which just got released for free. They released 3 more clans in that, and the ability to play humans and more rules on ghouls and some errata, which we will be using because it makes you more powerful.
Yeah, okay, I'm for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm listening.
PD fuff.
Yeah, so essentially remember with the Rouse the Blood, so you can boost any of your stats because vampires are great. You make the roll and then you can put anything up 1 point depending on your blood potency. The blood potency goes up 2 now. So if you have 1 blood potency, now your stat goes up 2 points because you're taking a risk. It wasn't as much of a risk versus reward. So
Neat.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot. There's with the way that things are now that we have a little bit more time. I would like to put a lot more in the game because there's a couple of things that I got to drop that like people that are in the know knew what that thing was and were like, oh no, but it doesn't take away from your experience not knowing, and you can explore in the game if you want to find out about that thing. I'm very excited to see how you completely fuck up Vancouver Island.
I assume Jessica's going to ghoul all her roommates.
I don't know. Kind of, maybe. I didn't look at the ghouling stuff at the beginning because I was like, extra rules I don't need to know right now. Poof. But I know it got suggested. I saw somebody on Twitter wrote the idea of ghouling Kathy so that she would leave me alone. And I was like, that's funny, but I don't know if... I have to think about what Kathy's relationship to Jessica is more. Because I think depending on the kind of person, I don't think Jessica just necessarily goes out just ghouling everyone she doesn't like.
I assumed that like Jessica would just ditch her roommates now that she has these cool new friends.
It's true. Yeah, she's got some cool new friends.
Yeah, it's like
So
Very cool.
my roommates bugged me, so I turned them into ghouls. Couldn't you just move out?
Yeah.
I mean, I could have.
Property's expensive.
That's why they still pay
Somebody's
rent.
got to look after the place during the day.
Yeah.
Like, if she's going to be friends
Cool
with
new
anyone,
friends
it's
and
going to be
Oliver.
Oliver
What do you
because
mean?
he helped her move stuff around in your living room, Jordan.
Yeah.
That was
Oliver's the
great.
kind of person that'll help you move a dead body, right?
Yeah.
If you won't ask questions because he's too scared to ask questions, that's the best kind of friend. He's too terrified. I'd be like, I don't like this, but I just want to get it over with and out of here.
Yeah. Well, like, we've seen Oliver dance, and we know if there's one thing he can do, it's move a dead body.
Fantastic.
Woo! But like my brain was just like, Adam would just be sitting there screaming, "Whose body is this? What happened? How did you get
do?
this?
Does this body belong to anyone? Could you
Has it
call
been
the
dead for long?
police?"
How long has it been dead for? I need to know right now.
Just ask some of your animal friends. I'm sure they can tell.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, like, actually, somebody with animalism is probably really handy for getting rid of dead bodies.
Yeah, just a bunch of pigs show up.
Yeah, just give the brick top pig speech.
Yeah. Love that
Snatch.
speech. Yeah.
I used that
Pigs
as an audition
like anything.
piece for a while. Yeah.
You don't want to upset the poor little piggies' stomachs.
As Tim y'all were talking about the pig speech from Hannibal, like, ugh.
Ah, yes.
I haven't seen that.
I don't know that movie.
Awesome. Any more questions, Paul?
I think that was all of the questions that I had snagged from chat.
All right.
So, and I think this works out well in terms of time. So, thank you all very much for. It's so nice to be able to do this, like, whatever.
Oh my God.
Q&A final session. I feel like it's something that we should try to do more with our Dice Friends campaigns, because it's always nice to sort of hang out a little bit and get all the details of.
I got one
Especially
last question.
considering.
I miss
You
all
know.
of you so much.
Gestures
Yeah.
of the world.
Debrief. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I do have one last question though. From this, what was your favorite moment from this little snapshot that we have, and what are you looking forward to exploring when we play again?
Mine was Silas passing every willpower check, which is, like, on one hand lucky, but I think also an interesting character thing, because dice results are fundamentally character things, right?
Yeah.
So maybe Silas has a bit more steel in his backbone than he thinks.
Cool. And how about for the future?
Definitely got to find out what's underwater.
What is that?
Can't, but curious.
I think I just thrive. I thrive on interacting with the other players at the table.
Okay.
That's my favorite thing. I love reorganizing Joe's house with Jessica.
That was my favorite thing. I was going to say.
I was like, I really like little moments like that where you can still see that these people are still trying, at least with Oliver, like, he's still trying to be a human being, right? Even though he's not. And I don't know. I just like that. I like playing off other people. I like giving you something to react to, your characters, right? I like giving you a reason to, like, you're like, wow, this guy's either an idiot or he's a genius, right? Like, I can't tell which one it is. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. But in the future, I'm just looking forward to, like, being Oliver more and being Oliver in these situations more. That's mainly it.
Where do you want Oliver to go?
I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I don't really have, like, a plan. There's nowhere, like, I can't say to you, like, I want Oliver to get here. It's like, I'm more of I react by the seat of my pants kind of thing. Okay. Rather than planning it out, I'm like, I want Oliver to do this, and then I eventually want to get here. It's more like Oliver was in this situation, and in this moment, this is how I reacted to it. Right?
Okay. All right.
I'm much more of just like an organic kind of, like, I'm trying to not make your job harder, because, like, Oliver doesn't have a real plan, right? Like, Oliver just like, I just need to, wow, there's a lot of people here telling me a lot of rules, and I hope I don't fuck it up. That's basically it.
So I want to say this is one of my own boundaries, just right off the bat. None of you can make my job harder or easier. That is not a thing that I want any of you to worry about. Like, oh, if I make this choice, it's going to make Jacob's job harder. Don't. Gimme. Just Fucking get the shovel and keep throwing it on. I got you. You can't. You did a Napoleon Dynamite dance in the middle of a rave, and it worked, and we folded it in, and we made it mean something. You cannot fuck this game up because that's the game.
Yeah.
Please, don't even worry about that, any of you.
Yeah.
So, question for you, Adam. On a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally intense would you want this to be? Let me give you an example of a 10.
What's a 10? Yeah.
One of the things that I don't know if it made it into the final product, but one of the things that I got closest to a 10 was in one of the tabletop games is a necromancer killed somebody's kid, bound their ghost, and then raised their ghost child as their own in order to torture his enemy. That's close to a 10.
That's an entrepreneur right there. I'd want that person on my team. Damn. Yeah, I think I'd want Oliver to go through a 10, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Oliver just needs to go through a 10, right?
What does Adam want to go through? Because Oliver can go through a 10 and we can just do like fade to blacks and things like that. What's Adam okay with?
Oh, Adam's probably okay with like a... Yeah, I think I'd be okay with a 10. Yeah, sure, why not? I think it's more just fun. I'm more interested in just like... Because I can play Oliver, right?
Okay. All right. We're going to test the waters and I'll give you a number and then you could be like, maybe we pump the brakes there. All right? Okay. That sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right, fuck yeah. Awesome. Cool. I love you people. Jesus Christ. Awesome. So anybody else, favorite moments and kind of where you wanted to go?
I really liked, and I know chat's going to be like, oh, you're just chanting TPK again. But I really liked the messy crits that kind of were on things that were that shouldn't have really had that much power behind them, like ripping out the chair seat instead of just unlocking it with what is probably just a simple latch, or like Corey hitting the brakes really hard when it should have just been pushed down on the pedal a little faster. Like, these are not hard things that anyone should have a hard time doing in real life, and yet we just kind of got very angry. And I find those moments really interesting, partially because you don't have the control over that as a player, where it's just like a thing happens, and that's what life is like in reality, where unexpected things happen. But yeah,
that was cool. And how about where you want the game to go? Like, what would you like to see?
I'm not really sure. I like stories that thrive on that talk about people's relationships and how they like interact with one another, as opposed to the things that they do. So interpersonal things interest me more. But I mostly just want to explore this person I created and moving around.
Cool. Yep, we can definitely do that. Awesome. How about you, Corey?
So yeah, the moment where my house was rearranged while I was gone was an absolute highlight. And there was kind of like, I guess that was probably the moment where it was like, I understood that there was a found family aspect to like the coterie and such, where like I built my character on sort of a family focus, but I expected to be more alienated by other vampire characters. And it was, I don't know, relatable in a way I didn't expect. And where I want things to go, like Joe wants to find out what everyone wants so that I guess things can be arranged. The fulfillment of everyone else's desires is important, so that they can be controlled.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been mostly unexpected. Definitely didn't expect the messy crits. But that was not more fun than just the scenes where we were interacting with each other, where it was like small things like Jessica not standing up when the sheriff leaves, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, that was good.
How everyone else wants to stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Vampire, conversation is combat.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yep. One of the things that I'm going to completely steal from my friend Meredith Gerber, who actually did the logo for us up there, is one of the rules that I'm going to enact for next time is if there is a messy crit or a bestial failure, we're going to go around the table and suggest what that should be, and I will decide which of those we go with.
Wasn't there a mechanic in Wraith? Like, I really wanted to play Wraith for a long time. My friend group was not into it, mainly because the art was amazing. But, like, wasn't that a thing in Wraith where the part of your character that wants to let go is played by the next person around the table?
There's a couple of ways to do that. So when you die in the world of darkness and you hang around and become a wraith, you get a shadow. A shadow belongs to Oblivion. Oblivion is exactly what it sounds like. It wants nothing to happen forever. Nothing. It wants you to be nothing. It wants that thing to be nothing. It wants your pet dog to be nothing. It wants everything to be nothing. So you have a piece of that in you, your psyche and your shadow. And there's a way in Wraith, the Oblivion, where another player plays your shadow. There's a couple of different ways to do it. When I run Wraith, I usually play people's shadow because you need to have a group that you trust implicitly that is there to tell a story in order to have somebody be the worst parts of your character. So it's somebody's playing the best parts of your character that's just trying to get by and like help their family because they're dead and that's how they're going to let go. And then the other player is trying to drag them down. Like it gets real intense. I have played 2 games of Wraith in my life and have cried both times. When I say, I mean like fucking ugly cried. Like my ears cried. Like everything cried. It was super intense, but it was with people that I really, really trusted and really, really enjoyed to play with. So when I run Wraith, I usually play other people's shadows because I do a session 0 and I kind of know where players' limits and stuff are. I've never run it where another player is somebody's shadow because that's something where I'm like, because I can't control that and I don't want to I don't want anybody to fuck anybody else up. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Wraith's intense.
That relates to like I would definitely want a 10 for my character just because I would like to cry for the emotions that they're going through. Like, Jordan's not me.
Yeah.
But caring or performing that character would be a cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We can do that. And thank you for trusting me. Yeah. Both of you that said, like, yeah, 10. Thank you for trusting me. It's not a guarantee that we're going to get there. I'm not aiming for that. Yeah. But it's nice to know that is somewhere that we could go.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not asking for it. I'm just willing.
Not asking for it, Tim. I'm letting you know that if it gets there, that's okay with me.
Yep. That's
absolutely.
Yes. Yep. If there happens to be ice cream at this buffet, great. But if there's not, I'm not going to do that.
The next session is just Grave of the Fireflies or something. It's just
yeah. So if you could just whip up catharsis for all of our characters in the next however long, that would be great. And we'll see if we can get there despite the messy crits, you know?
Ice cream.
I got you. How's that catharsis coming along? Oh, it's fine. It's good. It's salty like tears. Salty like tears. Mm-hmm. Ooh, boy. How about you, before we wrap up, Heather and Cameron, where emotionally are you okay with going? And I know, 2 people were immediately just like, book me up. Like, I've run my vampire game at, the private vampire game I have. 1 player is at a 10, and 1 player is at a 5. And I run them at the same table, and it's totally fine. I'm absolutely able to
Can I get an example of a 5? What's the middle? Because I've heard
the middle
10.
was his sire sitting him down and dressing him down and saying how disappointed he was in him for like 10 minutes. But that was like right up against the edge of 5 and 6.
Ooh.
I think I could do a 7. If we were doing a private game where people weren't watching, I think I could say I could push to a 10. But personally, in front of an audience, even a pre-recorded thing, I think I would pull myself down to a 7.
Fair. Okay, cool. All right. No tears, but feelings.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Cameron?
I'm happy with, whatever you're comfortable writing, I'm here for it.
Okay.
I can give me that 10 if you think you can do a 10 for Silas. I want something that we feel matches the character.
Okay.
So if there's no 10 waiting in the wings for Silas, don't force yourself to come up with something.
I'm not gonna force. I just want to know where the limits are so that I know what area we have to run around and play it. That's all. And just because and those are examples of what I think a 5 out of 10 is. We're all gonna have to hone in a little bit because somebody's 5 is somebody else's 10 and things like that. So we'll all, make sure that we have those conversations and do that properly. Mm-hmm. But it's good to know kind of about where folks are. Because sometimes, I don't want to go there with someone. Sometimes I'm just today, today's a beach day. Fuck it. We're just, it's the beach day of the anime. It's just going to be puppies that we're not going to eat, Oliver. And it's
but I'm hungry. Yeah. I'm hungry right now.
I'll get you a blood bag, I guess.
Yeah.
We need to get Oliver a cow farm.
Is there a Wendy's nearby? I'm going to Wendy's.
No.
Oliver becomes a dairy farmer.
We'll never get rid of that.
We all wake up on a beach, and the umbrella is the only way we stay out of the sun.
No beach episode, please.
Around it, just
yeah. Either that, or it's beach episode. Beach episodes. No, we have a beach episode at home. The beach episode at home. End of Evangelion.
Well, that would be bad. But yeah, we'll hone in on that. But it's good. As I'm musing and thinking about things. And again, I'm not writing anything. I'm already done. I already did all the work on this game. The game is just running now. When we pick the game back up, not much is going to be different. It's just gonna go, and I'm very excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's it for me.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And once again, we want to, or as always, we want to thank all the people who support us on the Patreon, patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. And also Wormwood Games for doing all that good Wormwood stuff, where you can get free shipping anywhere in the US with LRR, anywhere in the world. LRR World, $10 off, and that's the extent of the Wormwood Gaming plug right there.
Oh, but can we talk about not Fight Club?
Yes, let's talk about the other thing.
No, I'm sorry. I got to jump in here. The bones of trees, the skins of beasts. Adam.
Offer not
forgotten in the Forgotten Realms.
In the world of darkness.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
I thought you were being Oliver for a second, and you had a question.
No, he was waiting for the snappy.
I was gonna.
It's been a while.
I was revving up.
What's it called in Exalted? The area beyond
the wild.
The wild. Offer not available in the wilds.
But yes, store.LoadingReadyRun.com. We have a new awesome t-shirt. Don't talk about Bike Club. That is available for pre-order right now. It's going to be printing in early January. And it is super sweet. So check that out. Store.LoadingReadyRun.com, which, by the way, we've got a Boxing Week sale on right now, so check that out too.
Just a footnote on that. If you live in the UK,
For not
please do
valid
not
in the
order
UK.
the pre-order the shirt. You should be able to pre-order stuff you should be able to order stuff that's on the sale that's in stock and still get it okay, we think. But because the shirt goes off in January and the rules change January 1st, that shirt will not be able to go to you, and we really rather not disappoint you, so please, while that's weird to tell you not to order a shirt that we've just put up for pre-order, there's some unfortunate reasons that we have beyond our control on that.
Yeah. If you're in the UK, definitely take advantage of the Boxing Week sale, except for the shirt.
Right. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.